Coming up tonight, with an economy that's been stagnant for many years, will the announcement of 38 new items to the bread basket make a difference in Grand Bahama? We zero in on the island tonight, looking at various aspects of its economy and also life on the island. And later on in tonight's show, we talk plant-based eating, and the fact that it made such a difference in one woman that she's now turned it into a business. Beyond the Headlines is live tonight, and we're happy that you joined us. We get started this evening with news from the Prime Minister. You saw the national address earlier this week where Prime Minister Philip Davis announced that very, very soon, the 38 new items will be added to the bread basket. Now, retailers are already voicing their displeasure and disagreement with this. We will continue to follow that. But we are also looking to speak with various residents from here in New Providence and around the country on how this announcement will impact their lives moving forward, particularly given that inflation continues to soar or certainly be at a point of discomfort for so many. We are going to be joined this evening, and right now I'm happy to welcome to the show C. Alan Johnson, a resident of Grand Bahama, certainly, of course, no stranger to media, and voicing his opinions on many of the topical issues. And we're going to talk to him this evening about what's happening in Grand Bahama and also the top question, the announcement. C. Alan, good evening to you and welcome to the show. The announcement by Prime Minister Davis that 38 new food items will be added to the bread basket. Many people are looking forward to this and the relief it's going to bring. What's happening in Grand Bahama and what are Grand Bahamians saying as a result of this announcement?
Well, the impact on the food items for Grand Bahama will not make much of a difference. You could, for instance, one of the things that he put on it is eggs. About a couple of weeks ago, I was able to buy two dozen eggs for $5 or two for $6. Today, you can get an 18 pack for almost $9 and a regular pack for $7 and something cents. And so the main fact is that when I've talked to the retailers concerning the number of items that he has that he's going to add to the bread basket list, they're saying that those prices will not go back to the prices that we had before because due to supply issues, these are the prices they're paying. And the very fact that the government may even put a suppressed price or controlled price on those things, some of them may have to decide if they're going to even carry many of those items because they cannot basically sell them at a loss.
Well, I'm happy that, see, Alan, I'm happy that you kind of point that out because this is what the Retailers Association president is saying. He was on the show last night, and he mentioned the fact that many of the particularly small and medium-sized businesses are saying they may make a decision to not carry certain items anymore or for the time being, or certainly some of them may be forced to even close their doors.
Yes, because if you look at the mom and pop stores that make it from the quick turnovers, and the fact that even now for eggs, I went into one store, and even though it was in the major stores for the 18 pack was for it's $8.79. And this was something that I consistently bought for no more than $4.60 for the last year or longer during the lockdown. So what you have is the mom and pop store that look for quick turnover on these things, whether they buy them locally or otherwise. And if nobody's going to come in there and pay $10, $11, $12 on those items, it makes no sense for them to get them and have them spoil on them. Mm-hmm. And so when they even buy things like potatoes and onions and other things for turnover, they will begin to sell them 1-1. And, I took upon myself to talk to them. So you have the smaller stores where they say they bought like a bag of onions and they would break them down and sell them in the store for 75 cents each, 90 cents each. They said people would normally come in there for $3, but they were selling them for 60 cents. They would come for $2 or so for $3. They're now coming in there for $1.
Wow.
And so their prices have now had to go for literally almost $1 per onion and almost $1 per potato as opposed to doing, because even potatoes here in Grand Bahama has already moved from the $3 for the 5-pound bag to up to $8 in the major stores.
$8 for the 5-pound bag of potato?
Yes, $8 for a 5-pound bag of potatoes, and the 10-pound bag of potatoes are around $11.
And are those items moving? Because you said earlier that the new addition to the bread basket items really means nothing for Grand Bahamians.
No, it doesn't, because what happens is if you actually go to the stores, ever since the pandemic, the stores had a diminishing supply. So where you had multiple choices in the store on a particular shelf, the stores are now spreading out items just too deep just to fill their shelves, because there is a lack of choice in supply. And a good example is that the one owner of the store told me that the price of the generic items are becoming as expensive as the name brand items due to demand for the generic, not just here in the Bahamas. See, one of the things that, in spite of the breadbasket items, we have to understand is that the Bahamas imports inflation. We don't produce anything. So we don't set prices. And so what happens now is that we set an artificial price, an artificial medium above the prices. It'll cause a hardship on stores, more so the very smaller ones. Because remember, we only basically have two major stores, three, if you call it. If I mind me saying them, we have Solomon's, we have Cosrite, and we have Sawyer's. And so these are the major stores. And then you have the smaller stores that sometimes feeds from them is a matter of convenience. So you go to these stores for convenience. And their prices just slightly, but when you don't have, you have to weigh a choice like I do. I says, okay, I'm going to pay $5 or almost $10 in gas going all out to one of these other stores. When the little corner stores right here for about 30 cents more, 40 cents more. So you make that decision to buy these things. And so once those smaller stores for individuals who have a lack of transportation, if they were to go to business or they have to raise their prices beyond those people who basically shop on a daily basis, it will definitely have a negative impact as opposed to individuals going to the store. Because only time you see the stores full on Grand Bahama is during government payday or during distribution of social services checks. Other than that, you could be in and out of the store in 5 minutes. Yeah, full grocery shopping, because that's how it is. So you have these bursts of business, and so these stores that may have to consider, what are we maintaining these items in stock for when they already by algorithm knows when the burst is going to come. And so, when it's for demand. And I think somehow the government itself has to provide some data to basically say how this is supposed to work, as opposed to these sound good type sound bites that basically say, we're going to do these things and it's going to impact us. What we basically need is more of an organized social safety net environment. And I'm talking to a number of the NGOs here, where they will look to begin to stock staples, because when you begin to buy them in bulk, 1,000 pounds, 2,000 pounds of rice and beans and milk and cheese and all these different things, peanut butter and things, that they may be able to assist the public domain. But Grand Bahama, you have to consider that I can put to you maybe as much as 50 to 60% of Grand Bahamians are either unemployed or underemployed.
50 to 60, about 60%?
Yes, because, and I would challenge the government to simply go to national insurance and if you want to challenge me on this, release the statistics of the number of people that's employed. Businesses downtown in Grand Bahama is a ghost store, and many of the businesses are basically struggling to survive. Ever since Hurricane Dorian, very easily 70% of those small businesses never reopened. And then came COVID, and COVID had an extra impact for individuals that went out of business if a lot of people have moved into their homes. And so other than the industrial sector and the fast food sector, there's not been any major growth, because if you don't have a skill in the construction sector, it's this very incremental type environment. But just generally from business operations and the fact that incrementally you have the cruise ships that come here where very few people get off the cruise ship, because most of them already have been to Grand Bahama before or been told about it, that there's really nothing to do, because we do not have the what do we call the tourism infrastructure.
Right. And how is that, and see, Alan, how is that hurting? Because there are, I understand, maybe twice a week cruise ship coming in. I'm not sure how many, but how is that hurting? The lack of attractions and tourism infrastructure, as you coined it, just hurting the industry overall on Grand Bahama?
Because what happens is, it's other than the smaller tour agencies that came up with some niche products that they can offer, because you don't have the volume to sustain, even to keeping the employees, that they keep your employees working, you don't have the resources to keep the infrastructure going with your electricity bill, insurance, licensing fees, and all those other things. So in essence, they just open up, and I know of tour operators, so some of them, based on the cruise ships, they already kind of learned the system where they say they're not even opening for this particular cruise ship because the volume is not going to be there. And so then you have the straw market individuals that basically sits all day, sometimes for $5 or $10 a day. Taxi drivers, at one time during the harbor, you had taxi drivers had 2 and 3 cars, just the whole place was to be filled. Now taxi drivers are just basically almost like ambulance chasers, just just waiting, hoping that something come off. And some of them have developed a system of saying, okay, you go this day and you go this day and you go this day. And so even buses, the bus system that even taking people to work is basically, there's no real schedule. It's almost like go there and hope you make it, or know that you have a bus driver number you could call to find out, can you go to a particular place? Because the major hub of activities like Port Lucaya is all but non-existent right now, except for some restaurants, etc. Because as of the hotels,
and how are those restaurants faring in the Port Lucaya area?
There's a number of smaller ones that has basically developed because the other restaurants around town has been closed down. So unless you have a small grouping of clientele that you have, they have almost like a branding they become like a social point for those individuals that do have jobs or do work for government or otherwise. They would go and basically meet there for drinks and food. But then you have also, in some capacity, the young people always, they spend mommy and daddy's money. So they would go out there for type socialization type environment. But as far as, the only people in Port Lucaya that I would guess that are still open in Port Lucaya are those individuals that own their own buildings within the Port Lucaya area. But if you are renting a building or something,
right,
the $4,000, $5,000 a month rent that you normally would pay, you would not be able to afford to stay in business in Port Lucaya.
I want to talk about, and as we, of course, we're kind of looking in on the Prime Minister's national address, we began talking about the announcement of relief, because really the announcement has to do with relief, C. Allen, in terms as it relates to inflation. And so the announcement of adding 38 new food items to the breadbasket items list is to bring relief. And C. Allen, as you heard him say, it really doesn't make a difference here or there to Grand Bahamians. He says that retailers are complaining, particularly the small and medium-sized businesses, because they feel as though, as it stands, they may just be forced not to bring in products or even worse. And so we are talking about the state of Grand Bahama and the impact of inflation. I'll ask C. Allen about that in a second. But you heard him say already unemployment is about roughly 60%. I want to ask you, as Nasuvians and the rest of the country begin to prepare for an increase in electricity bills. I know that there was an approval of increase at Grand Bahama Power and Light. How is that settling in with business owners, with residents? What's happening there?
We have no choice. We had to pay it. We had to pay the increase in tariffs, increase in whatever the fee is, the oil fee. But we also had to pay for a fee for the rebuilding of the infrastructure. But here's a point that directly relates to what is happening in New Providence. First of all, let's state, no business in the Bahamas pays electricity bills, none. It's a pass-through. It's passed through to the customers. And so what's happening now is that you have an electricity impact on New Providence where these will now be passed through. This is where you say you're going to cap these prices and they can't pass through electrical bills on it. How do you cap a price before I even add my operations to it? Here on Grand Bahama, it's a very similar situation. Here's what's happened. If the store power bill is constant, but the purchases within that store is reduced, the store now has to look for redistributing the cost of energy across the limited amount of items it's selling. The fact is that we import inflation. And so the mere fact that the Prime Minister says that he will do something about inflation, I jokingly say amongst my friends, if the Prime Minister could prevent a written strategy for negating inflation, I would stand on two empty aluminum cans with a rope around my neck. That's how sure I am that he can.
That's putting it very...
because you can't. And so the problem we have is that the only way to combat inflation is the growth of the economy. And so the mere fact that you begin to take these activities to say you're going to negate tells me that you have no plan for the growth of the economy. The tourism product around the world is expanding. It's moving almost from the 10th largest industry to the 9th largest industry, because what happens is you have a social revolution now going on with millennials and Gen Zs and individuals and nearshoring and offshoring type work environment has changed the dynamics of the hospitality and tourism product. The problem is that we are trying to buy paint for the Sastapa Sands model when digitization and expansion of a new type of tourism and hospitality product is permeating the market. If you watch, even Airbnb is now having challenges where they're now going back to boutique hotels as opposed to Airbnb.
Yeah, boutique hotels are,
right.
that does appear to be the answer, Cial, and I agree with you there. And that is why some family islands with boutique hotels continue to do well. I'm not sure how the major properties are doing, but certainly they are doing well because people want that more intimate, a smaller downscale,
yes.
More authentic experience when they visit like a tropical destination like this. And when you say the tourism, are you referring to that? When you say that the tourism model from decades ago must now be remodeled and modernized?
Yes. What happens is that the tourism model as we know it is dead in the Bahamas. Let's not even pretend that we even have a choice of anything else. Okay? It is dead. What we have to do now, and let me tell you one of the greatest, one of the greatest contributor to the tourism model is dead, cruise ships. Mm-hmm. Cruise ships, we have the largest number of cruise ships, which is nothing more than all inclusive hotels. That's what they are.
Yes, they are.
And so essentially what they've done, they've taken our brand and envelope it around their inclusive hotels. And they're selling it as the experience, and we're not benefiting at all from it.
Because just as you said, the majority of passengers on a cruise ship, more often than not, do not even come off the cruise ship.
Because we haven't given them anything. If you've been to the Bahamas before, what are you going to come off and see? There's nothing new. After you've been here one or two times, there's nothing new inclusive. We have not went and embraced the orange economy. They love to use the orange economy in this new administration. The other previous administration used the word cultural and heritage. They one and the same. But we have not done anything to develop those economies as attractions for tourism. Let's first say, hospitality is what people experience, including accommodations. Tourism is what people do. And this is why you have sports tourism, health tourism, educational tourism, heritage tourism, cultural tourism, and all these various different words of tourism. We have not developed our tourism product, and our hospitality products have been diminished. At one time, a survey was done in 2019 before the hurricane, and says the Bahamas at one time provided sun, sand, sea, and service. The survey says that we no longer provide service. We now just sun, sand, and sea. Mm. And so now the service has now been moved onto the cruise ships. And we have been promoting and subsidizing the cruise ship as opposed to moving into this, developing these processes. And believe it or not, Ms. Miller, it's very easy now, in spite of what people think, for Bahamians to have access to capital for building boutique hotels and individuals, bed and breakfast and BRBOs. There's fintech, property tech, and these DeFi, decentralized finance, and tokenization. And we should be looking at tokenizing our entire in the economy. We should speak about that one day. Allows them to have access. I mean, I could basically show you a number of ways where we could provide 100% financing to individuals who want to build bed and breakfasts for under 20 rooms.
The thing is, I like what you're saying, and we toss around ideas all the time on this show or any other show I've ever hosted. The thing is, how do Bahamians truly access those? Because it appears difficult for the majority of Bahamians to access those international opportunities that are there for developing nations like this.
Because what happens is when individuals like myself, and let me just say this, right? People perceive me as being a poor man, and I am rich beyond what most people measure based on biblical principle. But this is what the Bible says. The wisdom of a poor man is always ignored. I've learned, being here in the Bahamas, critique or criticize a fool and you will be despised. Very few people I've critiqued and criticized who are considered wise men come back for more counsel. But the majority of those that move to leadership, a form of narcissism in our society, takes offense. And we see this where in 5 years before they didn't know, but 5 years they know everything, and then 5 years after they don't know. And so the intelligence among all of us is greater than the sum of us. But somehow our political leaders believe that all intelligence lies within them for this 5-year period.
Let Leslie Miller tell you about that. He has a good way of putting it, very humorously as well. We are going to continue with C. Alan Johnson as we talk about inflation and Grand Bahama as it relates, especially to the Prime Minister's announcement. He rolled out a number of things. C. Alan, I want to get your take on the increase on minimum wage and other things. Of course, the impact of inflation on the island of Grand Bahama. Grand Bahama has been really sort of in a stagnant state, its economy, for decades now. And, everybody is just hoping and rooting for any announcement, any sort of idea, any policy of the government to have the desired impact. And tonight we're looking at that. Don't forget, a little later, we also talk about plant-based eating and how it changed one woman's life to the point that she now made it a business. This is Beyond the Headlines. We're going to take a break and come back right after this. Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. It's great to have you tuned in this evening. We are talking really about inflation. We're talking about the Prime Minister's national address earlier this week, and also the announcement that the bread basket items offering will be expanded. And we're wondering, what will that mean for Grand Bahama? We are speaking with a leading citizen community activist, outspoken activist from Grand Bahama and on the island of Grand Bahama, C. Alan Johnson, who really speaks to issues like this and many others quite frequently on any kind of platform. And we are speaking with him tonight about the impact. C. Alan, welcome back to the show, by the way.
Thank you.
I would like to ask you, what is the missing ingredient that is so needed for Grand Bahama to restore the magic into the city?
It's for the Grand Bahama Port Authority to take its rightful place, for Freeport, they are the gateway, to take its rightful place as a promoter of the island, more so than as a management company. They're somehow seeming to want to regulate everything. But what Grand Bahama as a whole need is an actual island-wide plan. The Grand Bahama Port Authority leadership, who's been in place for actually 13 years this January, if they had the ability to do it, they would have done it. And we've had a change of government that talk a lot of things about the plan. And plans are just ambitions, things you want to do. But no one has ever brought actual strategies of how to do these things.
You're not the first Grand Bahamian to talk about the fact that the Grand Bahama Port Authority should be leading the way in promoting the island. And that will really get a lot of things moving in the right direction.
Yes, this is what their charge is. They are supposed to go out and solicit individuals to come and develop the island. They have major landholders to the tune of hundreds of thousands of acres. And beachfront properties, they have a monopoly on beachfront properties here leading from Freeport all the way up to McLean's Town. And so if you look at the United States have no more waterfront property or even no more canal front property, but yet you could buy canal front property on Freeport for quarter acre canal front property for $50,000. And so the fact is, then you have to ask yourself, and this has been ocean access, and why isn't Grand Bahama moving? There's a number of issues. One is that we have, the chicken or the egg type environment. Just use the tourism product as an example. People want to know what are they coming to get. So here it is that we have no airport. We have no medical facilities for any major investor who wants to come to this island concerning response. We have a clinic that was built in the 50s or 60s. It's a clinic. Rand Memorial is a clinic that was built in the 50s. Forget the name, we're changing the name to a hospital. It's the same clinic. Mm-hmm. Okay? So what you have investors I've talked to who says, if I was to put a multi-million-dollar plant here, what is the response for firefighting to protect my assets? There's none. We have had the Bazaar fire where we had to have the airport engine and Broco fire engine and the harbor fire engine come to help put out a simple wood fire, which is the International Bazaar. Imagine
why has C. Allen, in your estimation, I mean, it's known as the nation's second city, the Magic City. Why has Grand Bahama then been allowed to deteriorate so much over the years?
Well, it's both political and financial. We often hear people talk about the oligarchs and the plutocrats, the political class.
And that is the economy and the infrastructure.
Yes, but fixing Grand Bahama disrupts the economy of the Bahamas. Believe it or not, it does. In Grand Bahama, they have no control of the harbor and essentially no control of the airport. So goods and services can flow free from the rest of the world. We have an international harbor and gates for an international airport. But here's what happens. You can build a home in Grand Bahama for the price of a good piece of lot in New Providence. Build a home. If you used to go get a quarter acre prime property in New Providence, you probably get easy at $200,000. You could build a house here in Freeport. 1,600 square feet. So here's what happens. You fix Grand Bahama and 30,000, 40,000 individuals move to Grand Bahama. People say, that's great. You have critical mass that's beginning to move. What people don't understand is the political ramifications of that. 40,000 individuals moving to Grand Bahama also move 5 seats out of New Providence to Grand Bahama, for where they don't have a control of the economics of that type of environment. And so you have where you don't control the economy of Grand Bahama. Grand Bahama is basically an open frontier, and the Hospital Creek Agreement kind of protects that environment. And so this is why you saw stealth moves to try to grab hold of the economy before it's being developed. And so regardless of the fact that 2002, 2007, 2012, 2017, and 2021, both individuals that was vying for leadership at that time said there will be no economic recovery of the Bahamas until Grand Bahama itself plays a major role. Then you have to ask yourself, if that statement has been done, I say to you, challenge any economist to bring you a strategy for the revitalization of the Bahamas economy, and Grand Bahama don't play front and center, it will not happen. So we are playing smoke and mirrors, delay. And so
see, Alan, I don't know, because I don't know if to agree with you on that one, because you heard the Prime Minister's national address, and you talk about you talk about infrastructure and you talk about investment. So there's been an announcement for a new hospital, New Rand Memorial Hospital. You laugh at me, but you heard it yourself. I know you did. And a number of other things. Your response to that? I mean, don't you think you will see that new Rand Memorial Hospital materialize?
We have an expression, show me the money. But here's what happens. We've had an announcement of a hospital before, Right now, it was given away. We haven't seen the paperwork. The area the hospitals to go, and they build a school where they have 60 students right now, with hopes and plans somewhere in the near future that it'll grow to include people. The Western Atlantic University has taken over the Greenfield where the hospital is supposed to be. They're supposed to be looking for another one. That's supposed to be the most ideal height, location, and everything else of that sort. We have heard for the last 2 decades announcement of hospitals and promises. But to fix a hospital on Grand Bahama, considering the type of environment you want to develop, $200 million will give us an advanced clinic. It will not give us a world-class hospital that is needed to attract the type of business here. If you look at Doctors Hospital, I think their investments is well beyond the $100 million mark in acquiring buildings and setting up their hospital and their clinic here. And that's an existing building. Imagine now that you're going to build a brand new hospital for $200 million. What type of hospital are you going to build? You're not building a hospital. You're building something with a name hospital on it, but it will not have the facilities that is necessary to designate to attract world-class type environment.
Well, speaking of world-class type environment, let's talk about other announcements that have been made, and I think ground has been broken as well. And, for example, the Carnival Cruise Port. Any movement in that regard?
Other than the groundbreaking, no. And I put to you that there is in jeopardy. Carnival Cruise Line right now is one of the most worst faring of all the cruises since the reopening of the post-pandemic environment. In fact, Carnival Cruise stocks have fell from $70 to $6 in value. And in fact, people like MSC and other individuals are eyeing Carnival should it hit zero to acquire those particular assets.
$70 to $6? How recent was this?
Yeah, a couple of days ago. And I follow the various different investors that comes into the Bahamas. Carnival is taking a beating. In fact, Carnival is now charging $5 for peanut butter sandwich on their cruise ship that used to be free, just to get money.
So what are you trying to say now as it relates to the cruise port?
Carnival has a cash flow problem. They're struggling, and so to inject an investment of $300 million or more into this type of environment is not an ideal situation for them because they don't have that type of cash laying around. They are now literally almost to the pawn shop and looking at maybe disposing of some assets and et cetera to basically stay alive. And so, I understand you come and put some tractors on the ground for a few $1,000 or a few $100,000, but the tens of millions of dollars it will take to develop that cruise port until Carnival begins to stabilize itself and somehow the cruise economy turn around, I would not put that on a high priority list to meet the deadline that Carnival.
So you're saying potentially that can be delayed?
Yes, absolutely delayed or canceled. Basically, if Carnival is consumed and MSC or Disney or Royal Caribbean gets it, they were not going to put in another island location in the Bahamas to cannibalize their existing locations. And so essentially that will be dead man walking.
Wow. What is the overall, I guess, thoughts and feelings, mood of Grand Bahamians, truly? I mean, we know the state of the economy there. These announcements have been made, but you say it really makes no difference to Grand Bahamians. The airport is, I think there's been heads of agreement in terms of that for a new airport.
No. There's been statements made concerning that we have decided on who we will have do it. No one yet has had it. I know for sure that the board has been appointed. I find it somewhat curious because I listen with my mind as opposed to my ears. That the board has just been appointed about a month ago, and within that month time, they've only met 2 or 3 times, which is to meet the people. They have not had many major discussions. And having been involved with a bidder for the airport in the previous administration, I know the amount of work that it requires for the due diligence. And for them to say that they've acquired this information actually puts some doubt in my mind. And I put to you that, yes, they will try to repair or patch the current airport. But to say that you have a major developer without a major strategy of actually to what people are going to be flying in for, because the airport is going to take about $100 million or more to build. The question then becomes, what are they going to be coming? What are you building this airport for individuals to fly into Grand Bahama for? To simply say they're going to stop into the airport, look around, ooh, this is beautiful. Now let's catch the flight out. You coming for rooms? Are you coming for activities? Are you coming for whatever? And so the problem is that Grand Bahama has been devoid of any major investment, that the monies that's on Grand Bahama, I put to you, are sent back to Grand Bahama through remittals to take care of their families or Grand Bahamians who have left Grand Bahama and went to other locations like Bimini, Exuma, and other places, and New Providence, to actually sustain their families who are sitting here making ends due. The mood of Grand Bahamians is we'll see. The expectation, except for the fanatics, is not jumping up and down. And even those in opposition knows, well, we've heard the promises from up and up, and we weren't part of, so we already know that this is not really feasible. So there's a guarded optimism, and as each day goes and each delay happens, that hope is diminished.
And you don't want people's hope to become diminished because or lessened any, because everybody's trying to grasp at anything that looks like hope right now, and just for the mindset, just for the mental health of it all. But see, Alan, I'll give you an opportunity for a final comment. We certainly have to I'll check in with you again moving forward to talk about inflation and its impact on Grand Bahama and the rest of it. And when things get moving, because let's just speak that out, let's put that out there. When things get moving, I will interview you again so you can say, Shenique, I'll tell you the turnaround of this economy has been so amazing. So I give you an opportunity for a wrap-up comment.
The wrap-up is that we're hoping that on the 15th of next month that the hotel come to fruition. We are somewhat leaning towards the doubt factor in that, because you need a hotel, you need the airport, and you need the infrastructure to support both of those to be in place. That's not in place. We have not heard from the office of the Prime Minister, the Minister for Grand Bahama, in a long time. I sometimes forget her name. Oh yeah, Ginger Moxie. And we haven't heard from the Grand Bahama Port Authority. They have become absent, and the Deputy Prime Minister has become the new purveyor of hope, the new dope on Grand Bahama. And so we are simply saying we would like to have a conversation with the government of the Bahamas, where it includes directly through the Office of the Prime Minister and the Grand Bahama Port Authority. They are the primary individuals responsible for creating the legislation, the programs, and the policies for growth. And we believe that the answer lies within the citizens of Grand Bahama, in fact, the Bahamas as a whole, because this is all of us, that if we begin to have a conversation and put the truth on the table as to our conditions, we could work towards a solution commonly accomplished by all.
See, Alan, I thank you very much. He is one of the community leaders there in Grand Bahama. Certainly someone who speaks on any number of national events as it pertains to Grand Bahama and the country. And so we certainly appreciate you spending some time with us this evening here on Beyond the Headlines.
Thank you.
Absolutely. When we come